Welcome to the Equine Vet Connect podcast. I'm your host, Dan Carter. I'm a veterinarian and a farrier. The goal of this podcast is to educate horse people, break things down, bust myths, and keep it real. Speaking of breaking things down, here's my legal disclaimer to keep my attorney and insurance company happy. While I am a vet, I may not be your vet. Contact them before trying anything you hear on this podcast. Remember, just because you watched it on YouTube or heard it on a podcast does not mean you can do it. Please use common sense.
Welcome to the Equine Vet Connect podcast. My name is Dr. Zoe Latimer, and I'll be your host this week. Dr. Dan Carter's taking a break. I have a very special guest with us this week. We have gotten so many requests for the appearance on this podcast of a person that everybody refers to very fondly as one of their most favorite veterinarians they've ever come into contact with. He is a local legend, and from day one of me working here as a veterinarian, I have gotten pretty much every single day people asking me about him, and his name is Dr. Billy Myers. He is the founder of Countryside, and I am very pleased to introduce him to you all today. Dr. Billy Myers, will you please say hello to everybody?
Thank you. Hello, and good to be back at Countryside.
Yes, welcome. I guess we're just going to open it up. If you don't mind, just telling us I guess we'll start with, for those of the listeners who don't know who you are, although we have lots of clients who have been with us for a long time and they're very familiar with who you are, there are a lot of new clients and new listeners who may not be familiar with you in your local lore, but if you'll please just maybe introduce yourself a little bit and, kind of say, what year did you start Countryside, and, how many years did you own the company?
I had practiced for, I think, 7 or 8, 9 years before I decided to start the facility itself. I'd worked in a practice in Lawrenceville for 8 years, and then worked out of my truck for a year and a half, 2 years. And in 1991, June of 1991, I think that's correct. It was either 1990 or 91. We started Countryside, and it was started, we built a facility, went ahead and built a facility to handle large animal, and it was started as all large animal veterinary facility. Had surgical suite, had a table for cattle, chutes, and that kind of thing. Awesome.
And so before you started the practice, let's go all the way back. Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Snellville, Georgia, back when everybody was somebody in Snellville. That was their motto. Went to veterinary school at the University of Georgia.
What year did you graduate?
Graduated in 1979. Graduated exactly 10 years to the day from the time I graduated from high school at South Gwinnett High School. It took me a little longer than most to get through vet school because I was kind of slow, but yeah, I did it in 10 years because I did a lot of night school. And then when I graduated from vet school in '69, I went to work at the veterinary practice that I had cleaned cages for and was an assistant for in Lawrenceville, Gwinnett Animal Clinic. And I started out to be one of the veterinarians that did a little bit of everything, but slowly but surely I kind of became the large animal vet for the practice. And at some point I decided I needed to go out on my own, and they were fine with that. We had a good relationship with all the people there, great mentors there. And I went out from that. I actually went to work at a vet clinic in Social Circle for a short while, and through no fault of anyone, I don't think, that didn't work out. So I bought me a little truck and put me a toolbox in it and throwed a bunch of tools in there and bought up what equipment I could find and just started letting people know I was available. Put my phone number out there and just really worked out of my truck. And for about 2 years, that's all I did, is out of the truck. And I'd had a dream of building a facility, having a place where I could have animals come in. And we finally got to a point, and Dr. Bill Conley of Gwinnett Animal Clinics partnered with me on the building of the facility. I probably wouldn't have been able to do it financially without him. He wasn't a tremendous help on the work because he had his own business that he was very, very busy in. And we started out just me, and I think I had 1 or 2 employees that would help out some. And I remember for a good while there, Dr. Connolly would cover emergency duty for me one Sunday and Sunday night a month, and that was my time off. And the rest of the time I was...
You were on call for 29 days out of the month.
I was pretty much working 29 days a month, and there were some long days.
So back in the early days of Countryside, you were a one-man show. Mm-hmm. And you did only large animal in the beginning. Mm-hmm. What did a typical week look like for you? And I know that vet med was very, very different back then. And what did a typical week consist of for you? I mean, did you have a technician? Did you have multiple technicians? Did you have an office lady? What were your typical calls like?
Early on, I guess at first we had one employee.
Just one?
Yeah, she was the receptionist, the technician, the bookkeeper, the whatever we needed, and she cleaned the stalls, except on the weekends. And on the weekends, I would have to do all the stall cleaning, and I'd have to do all the feeding of the animals, making sure they were watered well, that kind of thing. And I had a friend. I developed a friend, actually a few friends around here, but one specifically lived not very far from the clinic. His name was Walt Weathers, and Walt was a great friend, and he would come help me clean stalls and help me feed and water the animals. And anyone from around here that ever knew Walt Weathers, he was quite an individual. But he'd help me clean stalls, and what he wanted out of the deal was breakfast. And so we'd try to go to breakfast if we had time. And he'd end up having to go on calls with me. And but you ask about a typical day. We covered such a large area that I would try my best to schedule, even after we got other doctors working, we'd try our best to schedule all our calls in a circle in the area. So you start here and you go here and you go here and you go here. And our area was pretty much from Buford to Monticello, north to south, and from Athens to Stone Mountain, east to west. Mm-hmm. And invariably, you have a call in Loganville, and the next call is in Snellville, and the emergency is in Monticello. Yeah, Locust Grove, wherever. I mean, and you
your
get
next one's in Jefferson.
Exactly. You get done with that emergency, and there's another emergency on the other side of the world. And so that was kind of a typical day. And I can tell you, I spent lots of nights in my truck. I slept in my truck a lot. it was not unusual to have an emergency that tied you up until 2 o'clock in the morning, several emergencies until 2 o'clock in the morning. And even a lot of your scheduled calls got put off to the point that you weren't getting to them till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Your vaccinations, your Coggins test, things like that end up being real, real late. So something interesting, I got to be very good friends with the police department in Conyers because I would spend the night in my truck in the parking lot of the grocery store. And I think it was a Kroger. And the first time I did, they came and told me I couldn't do that. And I explained to them that I was too tired to drive home. I needed a little sleep. And so they started saying, okay, you call us when you come park here. We'll leave you alone. They even got to a point where if I told them I needed to leave there by 5 o'clock in the morning, they'd come peck on my window in my truck, wake me up, and I could get on my other calls.
That's so nice.
Now, not many, there were no other cities that did that. I don't know why Conyers turned out to be so good about that, but they were very good about it. So that was kind of a typical time. It was not unusual that I would leave home at, say, 6 o'clock Monday morning and wouldn't be back home until Thursday night sometimes because the calls were so. And I tried to keep that from my clients. I tried to keep my clients from realizing how much I was working because I was trying to build a business. And I was single, wasn't really dating. I dated a few girls, but if they couldn't go on farm call with me, we didn't date. So I did date a few girls that went on farm calls with me, and I had a few really, really good gals that went on a lot of farm calls and helped me a lot. But so that was kind of my typical time.
Yeah. Sounds like you were very busy. I heard from, I think it was Elaine Sulzer told me to ask you how many trucks you went through in particular.
Elaine. She's just talking about 1 year. It was just 1 year. I traded trucks.
Only the 1 year. Huh?
Yeah, only the 1 year was bad.
Was it when you were on call 29 days in a row?
Actually, it was after things got good.
Well, you're on 28 days?
I was actually getting some time off.
Got an extra Sunday?
I went through 3 trucks. I totaled 3 trucks.
Totaled them?
I totaled 3 trucks in 1 year's time.
What?
And I took out a Range Rover in the process. Now, I didn't have another wreck for several.
I heard something about a bridge, too.
Well, now, that was several years later.
What?
I was already dating my wife at that point. I took out the bridge over Gratis Road, and I actually I went to sleep, and I hit the guardrail. No, I hit the bridge, hit the guardrail, bounced off and hit the bridge, and the truck came up in such a manner that all the doors on the unit opened, and then when it hit, they slammed back. But one small bottle of Kitaset came out and landed down on the road, Gratis Road. Well, I wasn't sure what all came out, and I told the police, I said, there's potentially all kind of things that could be out, and nobody needs to pick them up. So they scoured the area, and they found one bottle of Kitaset, which wouldn't have been good if somebody
I'm glad nobody got
picked that up.
Yeah.
But so that was a few years later. So I mean, I went through 3 trucks in 1 year, and then I had another wreck 3 or 4 years later. But I tried to trade trucks about every 2 years because I'd put 80,000 miles a year on them, average.
Yeah,
so
we still do that.
Y'all still drive a lot.
Yeah.
Veterinary medicine is, somebody asked my wife one time what I did for a living. they didn't know me, and they said,
You're a truck driver.
What does your husband do for a living? She said, he's a truck driver.
Yeah.
So
How did I know?
that's kind of true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You do it too. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess there's been so many changes in vet med. I know that the driving is still the same, obviously, but
Yeah.
and the key to set is still the same relatively.
Yeah.
We still have that, but there's been so many other changes. Is there anything that comes straight off the top of your head that you can think of that we use every day now that you remember when it came out and it was a huge deal?
Oh yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I remember. I was in school and the professor said we have an opportunity to go to Monroe, Georgia, and watch the veterinarian use 2 products that are brand new in combination to castrate a horse. And it was rompin and ketamine and xylazine and ketamine.
Wow, they were brand new, huh?
They were brand new, and castrations were either done standing or you needed approximately an acre to get a horse to go down because it'd stagger all over the place using the stuff we used. And it would take hours for it to get up, and you had to have people right there with it. So when rompin ketamine came, horses laid down, got up. But truthfully, I was thinking about the big differences in veterinary medicine. Anesthesia certainly is one area, but an area that has changed so much is parasite control. I mean, when I was...
used to tube them with the dewormers.
When I was right out of vet school, or when I was still in vet school, tube worming was a big thing. We tube wormed a horse once or twice a year, and that was it. That was pretty much all the worming they got. Some of the horse people would use tobacco to deworm their horse because they really didn't have a whole lot of choice. And you probably know nicotine will kill parasites, but the amount of nicotine it takes to kill parasites is pretty close to the amount it takes to kill a horse.
Yep.
So you got to be real careful with it. But we'd tube worm them, and then along came pastes, and you could pick those up at the feed store, and gosh, I remember wringing our hands about, are we going to starve to death because we're not tube worming anymore? And I talked to an old vet who said, well, I remember when they stopped treating hog cholera, I thought I was going to starve to death. And he said things came along, so things develop and practices change. Now, well, even before I retired, we were doing fecal egg checks. Who would have thought? I mean, we thought we were doing the best medicine based on the science that we had. And so at one point we were recommending rotate your wormers, use wormers and rotate them. And we went through a lot of different, came out with this product Strondage that you feed daily. All those things were pretty good science. And then I think it was Dr. Kaplan at the University of Georgia started doing more study into resistance, parasite resistance. And out of that came fecal egg checks and that kind of thing. And that seems to be, of course, who knows what's going to happen? Things change. And we have to be ready to change with it. We have to be ready to grow into the new ideas. And I can remember being a little resistant to some things until it was proven to me that, hey, this is the best thing. Mm-hmm. I remember when Dr. Carter came on board, I was injecting joints with cortisone hyaluronic acid, which hyaluronic acid was a new product kind of at the time. And he came in with some kind of regenerative medicine thing and wow, blew things away. And now They're even doing it in people. They're even doing regenerative medicine in people. They're a little behind veterinary medicine, of course, but they usually are. But yeah, so times are changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's just crazy. I can't believe that. Oh, 3 vehicles in 1 year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, now, I got, and I did take out a Range Rover in one of those, but she stopped awful quick. And another, it was pouring down rain, and deer aren't out in the rain. And this stupid deer come running across, and I'll never forget. I slammed on my brakes on that little old road, and I go spinning around and hit that pine tree. And I look out the window, and there's that deer standing over looking at me like, well, you dummy. I mean, that wasn't really my fault.
Yeah.
It was the deer's fault, but
Yeah.
but the insurance company didn't see it that way.
That's right. Well, I know the first time I ever met you, I came to your house to vaccinate all your horses and pull their coggins and check their teeth. And I looked at the appointment on my schedule for the day, and I said, Billy Myers, like the Dr. Billy Myers? I was like, why am I going to Dr. Billy Myers' house to vaccinate and pull his horse's coggins? I was like, I show up and I'm like, surely this is incorrect. And I asked you, I was like, what do you need me for? And he's like, I don't have a needle or syringe on this place. He was like, I threw everything away when I retired. I didn't want a single piece of veterinary equipment on this property. And I mean, I guess when you retired, you threw it all away. You retired. Is there anything that you miss though?
You know, I'll be honest with you. And I have to say, Dr. Carter nudged me into retirement.
Nudged you?
Yeah, a little bit. I was doing a lot of work with, I was involved with Christian Veterinary Mission, and I was involved with the University of Georgia Christian Veterinary Fellowship. And I remember, and I don't know if Dr. Carter remembers this or not, but he would call me, or he'd talk to me about something we need to do, and it would kind of conflict with my work with Christian Veterinary Mission. And I used a line, it's probably a little bit sacrilegious, but I used a line with him. I said, do you not know I need to be about my Father's work? Which is the very line Jesus told his mother and father when they came and found him at 12 years old. And when he came to me and said, I'd like to buy you out. I think you're ready for retirement. And I said, I don't know, Dan. I'm not sure I'm ready for retirement. I don't know if I can afford it. I just don't know. And he said, do you not know you must be about your Father's work? And I was like, whoa. Okay. And the truth is, I retired. And yeah, I was a little concerned about, I mean, veterinary medicine had been my life. Mm-hmm. It really had. And so I was concerned that I was going to have a hard time. 3 days after I retired, literally 3 days after I retired, I was retired. Mm-hmm. And I was happy as I could be. And I was involved with Christian Veterinary Mission and Christian Veterinary Fellowship at the university, and that was all good. And so that occupied a lot of my time, but I did. And now, when Dan bought the practice, he bought all the equipment, and he said, I mean all the equipment. So he got everything. I gave up. I think I have a set of hoof testers somewhere. And
one set of hoof testers.
Yeah, one set of hoof testers. And so I did not have any equipment. As a matter of fact, just recently, Mr. Lee Dillard called me because he had a cow with a foot problem. And a neighbor of his had some trimmers, and I got there, and he also had a bull down. He had all kind of problems. had a bull down and it needed some Banamine, and I didn't have any Banamine, and I actually ended up coming here and getting some needles and syringes and Banamine to go give his cow and his bull a shot. So I still don't have equipment, and as a matter of fact, I'm in the process now of letting my license go.
Wow.
Up until this year, I've still been licensed, but the only reason I was licensed is if I go on a mission trip, I need to be licensed to doctor animals. But anymore, I go on a mission trip. This last mission trip, I went on to the Navajo and Apache Reservation this past summer. I told them, I'll go and I'll be your gopher. I'll do whatever I need to do, but I'm not doing any veterinary medicine. My balance issue was one of the main reasons I retired, and that's still very prevalent, and so I had to be careful. And until I got into my 70s, I kind of didn't let that get to me. But now I realize, you know what? I'm old. I need to take it easy. And so doctoring animals, I don't need to be doing that, and they don't need me. I can do other things, and so I'm happy doing other things.
Are there any little tidbits or any good stories that you can share with us from your many years of being a doctor of veterinary medicine? Is there any lighthearted moments or just anything at all you'd like to share with us?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you the first time I was asked to go speak, this was while I was still working at Gwinnett Animal Clinic in Lawrenceville. I was asked to speak at a saddle club, and you probably wouldn't understand this, but there was a guy in the group that in the audience after I gave my talk, and I don't remember what I talked on, but it was a pony club or a saddle club, so I talked on some kind of equine health. And this gentleman asked me, could you tell us your treatment of Lampus? And now, if any of the audience know what Lampus is, they're old. Because Lampus is a disease that the only way I can figure that it ever occurred is because people were feeding dried corn on the cob to their horses and mules, and it would cause their gums to swell. And if a horse colicked or went off food or anything, they'd raise their lip up and look, and the gums be swollen, and they'd say it had Lampus. Well, Lampus ain't real. It ain't a real disease. I'm sorry to tell anybody out there that might be in their 80s that think it is, but I said, I'm not going to tell you my treatment for Lampus, and I don't want you to tell anybody what your treatment for Lampus is, because the treatment for Lampus back then, some of them were real brutal, but one of the main treatments was to take a corn cob and soak it in kerosene and twitch the horse, roll his lip up, and rub the gums until they bleed with kerosene, a corn cob soaked in kerosene. Why? I had a professor tell me one time that all the old treatments that people do has some kind of basis normally. And I asked him about Lampus, and he said, well, there are usually some examples that are not real. But there may have been something to it, but.
I was also told to ask you about another disease in particular called hollertail.
Ooh, hollertail. Oh, goodness. It ain't nobody your age ask you about that. That's an old person ask you about it. Hollertail was when a cow would get down. Didn't matter what the reason was, she's just down. And what a lot of the old farmers would do is they would take their pocket knife. All farmers had a pocket knife.
Well, of course.
Take their pocket knife and kind of cut a little place in the cow's tail and pour rock salt or turpentine in that cut, and then take your old boot and roll it over the tail. Just stand there and roll the tail back and forth. Well, the pain would be so great that the cow would get up.
Whoa, yeah.
If she could possibly get up, she'd get up. So they thought they had cured her, but you know, and a little while later she'd get back down. Holler tail was not a real disease, but people kind of thought so. I can tell you one that there had to be some real science to. Colic, people used to take a cup of turpentine and hold it on the horse's navel. Mm-hmm. And if you watch it, the navel will soak up a good bit of the turpentine.
Really?
And the horse will start doing better. But the whole reason is the irritation to the navel is worse than the colic pain. So he's staying up because he don't want to lay down.
Ah.
But yeah, there's a lot of old things that was done. And
was there anything else that you guys used to do that was weird?
Oh, we did a lot of things. We did. There were things that we did that we thought was good science that later proved not to be all that great. But and you know, veterinary medicine different because people now value their animals more greatly than they did. Not that they didn't love their animals and not that they didn't need their animals, but people now put a little bit higher dollar value on their animals. Mm-hmm. And so, and also, people, your clients, know so much more about veterinary medicine than my clients did. Of course, you know a whole lot more veterinary medicine than I did getting out because it's more available, it's there. But, you know, with Google and all that kind of stuff.
I think the trade-off is that you know a lot more common sense than I do.
Well, and there is a good point to that because a lot of the common sense things is what made you able to go out and do the work, even though you may not know the science that you're doing. You just go and you do and you do the best you can. And
well, it was enough to make you a legend, so.
Well, some of those stories I tried to.
I'm so interested to hear about some more of the things that you did, like for certain treatments. Eggs and milk for semen extender, you know, like.
Well, and some of the things we did were because we just didn't have anything readily available. Semen extenders and things like that. People played with.
Like what you had on hand, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Play around with what you got on hand, see what works, and if it works, you use it. I mean, just to kind of tell you a little story. Once upon a time, I got on a call with a prolapsed vagina on a cow, and I didn't have equipment with me. Didn't have anything with me. We took a tine out of a hay rake and sharpened it and used it to poke a hole through the vulva and used a shoestring to feed through to tie the vulva off so the prolapsed vagina wouldn't come back out. I mean,
So you made your own Buhner's needle, like.
Yeah, made my own Buhner needle. And I mean,
Nice.
if you're in a situation where you got to, you you do.
Yeah.
And you figure out how to do it. You've done it, and you use common sense a lot. You just sometimes don't recognize it. But, I mean, that's what we did. That's what we've always done. Veterinarians are some of the best at doing the best they can with what they have. Mm-hmm. And now we're sitting in a facility here that is awesome. And I tell you, the Bible says don't covet, but just a little bit I covet this facility because I was really proud of the facility we had, but wow, this is awesome. So you're still going to run into days that you're going to not have exactly what you need, and you're going to make what you have work to the absolute best outcome of the animal. And I'm not sure I don't know, but I'm not sure human doctors, for the most part, know how to do that. And we need to keep that in the veterinary profession. We need to keep the ability to if we don't have exactly what we need, make what we have work. But I'm not talking about cutting corners. Make it work to the absolute best of its ability and your ability.
Right, you're talking about being resourceful and keeping that resourcefulness as a skill. Yeah.
Exactly. Resourcefulness is a skill. And keep that. But I am so thankful that you have so much at your fingertips now.
Yes, so am I.
It's good. It's good. Because if one of my horses gets sick, I have no problem in saying, hey, so come.
Well, you can always call me.
Yeah, come and take care of it. Because I know that y'all have everything you need to do a great job, and that's good.
Do you, I know I asked you if there was anything you missed about vet med, but is there anything that was your favorite part about it? Just looking back on your decades of being in veterinary medicine, is there any one thing in particular that was just like your absolute favorite part about being a vet? Was it the animals or the people or anything in particular? Was it it allowed you to serve, or?
The truth is, I had a client tell me one time that made me realize what it was I loved about veterinary medicine. I was going to stitch up a cut horse. It wasn't a horrible cut, but it was bad enough. And I'd been doing her work for years. And I got there and I had to lay the horse down to actually work on the cut because it was bad enough. And pretty close to done, and she said, I'm always in panic mode until you arrive. And when you arrive, I'm fine because I know you got it. And that was what I really liked about it. That's the thing. I guess that's the one thing I do miss is
you're the hero.
Yeah, I could be the hero.
Yeah.
I could have results. And I knew what I was doing. When I got a call and they said, you've got this, my brain started working on what I was going to do when I got there. And I think that's the thing that people don't necessarily realize is my time with this client doesn't start when I get to the farm. My time with that client starts when I head there or when I set up the appointment. Sometimes I can set up an appointment for 2 days from now to go see a problem that we've been dealing with, and that's going over in your head. You're already thinking about that, and you're already working on that. And,
Oh, yeah.
and so I think that's the thing I kind of miss is, I don't necessarily want to call it a hero, but it was good.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's good to be needed.
Yeah. I know for a fact, like sometimes when I answer the phone on emergency, like sometimes even when they just know that you're like, okay, I'm on the way, they already are feeling better because they know that you're coming.
Yeah.
So I know that. I know that feeling.
And that is what veterinary medicine's about is taking care of the client and relieving them of the anxiety they have because they are anxious. They don't always know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all go through a real good thing of teaching people how to deal with the different issues while the veterinarian is on the way. And that's good. That's real good. But I think that's the big thing is you get there and that client's going to be relieved because you're there and you're going to be able to take care of their problems. And sometimes taking care of their problems may mean a bad end, but and that's one thing I've always said is if I don't do anything else, I owe that animal a chance to be relieved of pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been, gosh, get into euthanasia and I'd get all teary-eyed, I guess. But I think you owe that animal a chance to be freed of pain and be freed of problems.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, sometimes the result that needs to occur is the death of the animal, and that's a hard thing, but that's one of the...
But I'm thankful that we have the option to be able to provide that for them.
And it's one of the best things you can do for one that's in...
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
pain. And we said this was going to be a lighthearted thing, and here I am getting us into some...
No.
But
Well, is there any, some of our listeners are actually in vet school right now, or maybe they're wanting to go to vet school. I have a lot of younger kids that are clients of ours that they're barn rats, and they're all watching me while I'm working, and they're like, I want to be a vet, and is there any advice that you might have for the next generation of maybe future veterinarians or aspiring veterinarians, crazy horse girls that want to be horse vets or large animal vets, actually?
Well, I tell you, we need large animal vets. The country needs large animal vets.
Desperately.
I'm kind of afraid the cattle vet is a thing of the past in this area. I mean, I got several friends that's got cows, and it's kind of hard to find anybody that'll doctor their cows.
Next to impossible, yeah.
Yeah, but it's also getting more and more difficult in some areas to find an equine vet. And that's why y'all travel such long distances. I would... And I have seen a number of especially young ladies go through veterinary school with every intention of being an equine vet or large animal vet, and either never get there, end up doing small animal, or practice large animal for a while and get out and go into small animal. And I can tell you, large animal veterinary medicine is hard. On the body, and whether people want to hear it or not, there is a difference in a man and a woman. And women, it can be pretty rough on you, especially if you go through carrying a child and then having a child and raising a child, and no man goes through anything like that. So I would tell any young person, especially the barn rat girl, go for it. There's nothing like it. There is no better profession. There has never been a better profession than veterinary medicine. Never will be a better profession than veterinary medicine. Go for it. And I mean, even though I was very much into the cattle and even hogs and goats and things, horses was always the part that I really, really enjoyed. The equine was always the part I really enjoyed. So go be an equine vet. And, you know, if you have your young'uns and it's just a little too much for you, then go be a small animal vet if you got to. Turn over to the dark side. But and you know, I know a female vet years ago around here raised twins, and one of her twins is now a veterinarian. So, I mean, you know, she was a large animal vet for years and years, raising twins. So it can be done. It's hard.
Yeah.
Long hours. If you're single and you're working long, large animal hours, it's hard to date. And so that can be difficult, but go for it. Go do the best you can. And I'm gonna tell you, if you can, and it's hard, if you're a young person wanting to be a veterinarian, if you can, go hang out at a vet clinic. Now, when I was practicing, when I owned Countryside, we would let young people come and ride with us on calls, come and hang out at the clinic. And after a while, the insurance got a little concerned because a lot of young people in other practices, thank God we never had a problem, but a lot of young people in other practices got hurt, and insurance had to pay for that person's hurt, and sometimes that was quite a bit. So they started telling us, don't bring people in. So I don't know what the policy is now.
I'm not sure.
But if someone can, if a young person can come and hang out with you a little bit, it's so valuable. It's so much more valuable than what you, well, I mean, you got to learn what you learn in vet school, but some of the common sense things you learn just hanging out with a veterinarian. And I had a lot of them hang out with me, and it was always good. I always felt like they gained something from it. So if you get an opportunity to do that, if you can't find a veterinarian that will allow you to, and you know, I understand they may not, just ask, can you come and observe? Just stand off in the corner and watch. Because sometimes you can learn a lot just watching. But it's the best occupation in the world, best profession in the world.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much for being here with us this morning. And I think there's, you know, I couldn't have asked for a better co-host with me. And if anybody sees you around town, I'm sure now that they'll know who you are. And anybody that watches the podcast and didn't know who Dr. Billy Myers was, now they will. And we'll see you guys next week on the next episode of the Equine Vet Connect. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.